Last time I saw you was out on the streets in the Freedom or the Free Speech Festival, the biggest festival of its kind for a very long time. Although the size of the crowds were disputed in the media, even though I was there, you were there, and we saw how large the crowd was. One of the points you made at the time is you were the only politician who bothered turning up. Why was that?
Well, I think it's a really good question, by the way. And it goes to the heart, I think, of a malaise and a sickness in the British political fabric. And it's this that people are so scared, politicians are so scared of being cancelled or set aside by the mainstream that they won't stand up for principle. They're prepared to accept the argument even though it may or may not be false, they're prepared to accept the argument that Tommy Robinson is the Voldemort of British politics, an evil person, and that they must not share a platform with him. Because if they were to do so, then the BBC, Sky, others, and so on would cancel them. And what I think all politicians miss, they miss a number of things when they behave like that. The first is that just purely from their own political perspective, they're missing connecting with millions of British citizens. I mean, I don't know how many you think were there the other day, Andrew, but I would say, you correct me if you think I'm wrong, but well over 500,000 physically present, well
Yeah,
over half a
and there
million.
must be a way of calculating this. And I've seen the aerial footage.
Yeah.
I posted some of it. Tommy posted some of it as well. And you can work it out. You can see how
Yeah,
many people are on
it's
the streets.
massive anyway. And there were 2.5 million people online. So they're missing an opportunity to connect with their own people. But I think the more sinister thing is that in accepting that Tommy Robinson is the Voldemort of British politics and therefore you must not share a platform with him, what they're doing is taking the need to cancel culture and they're effectively um, also standing, not that I'm a great banger of the drum of various human rights conventions, because I think they've been misused, but Article 20 of the UN Declaration of Human Rights gives every individual the right for political association, uh, the right to come out and speak. And they're effectively turning their back on that fundamental human right. And for me, when people used to ask me, will you speak at the Unite the Kingdom March? For me, it wasn't so much Tommy Robinson is Voldemort, I mustn't be on a stage with him. Um, but I am being invited to speak to the British people. On what basis could I turn that down? What would be my justification? And if the justification is that by association I may get cancelled because Tommy Robinson is cancelled, well, then I'm not being true to my principles of free speech and that UN Article 20 of the UN Declaration of Human Rights. And the other thing that I think is worth mentioning is that a lot of these politicians who regard Tommy Robinson as, kryptonite and won't go near him are quite happy to share platforms with Mary Lou MacDonald, who is head of Sinn Féin, the political arm of the IRA, who refuses to condemn terrorist action that's taken place on British soil. They're quite happy to hobnob with her. Michelle O'Neill, who is the first minister of Northern Ireland from Sinn Féin, equally refuses to denounce terrorism, but she was welcomed with open arms into the coronation of the king. And they're all at odds with each other. Mandelson, who was thrown out as ambassador the other day from the US because of his association with Epstein. Well, they're all friends with him, but they've got a problem with associating with Tommy Robinson. There are two rules being applied here. And I think we're not going to mend this country. We're not going to restore freedom of speech until politicians can be robust in applying the principles which they espouse. In other words, everyone has a right for political association, and you should have the courage to connect with the British people.